Welcome everyone to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. Today we've got David Thirumur on the line all the way from India. This is very exciting because this is our first guest all the way from that side of the world. He is a life coach, entrepreneur, a youth training expert, and a motivational speaker. And we connected probably about a year ago talking about the podcast and that sort of thing. David reached out to me through LinkedIn, and ever since then we've got lots of alignment in the way that we work and become friends. So David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. It's my first ever podcast. So.
This is so exciting. Yes, we're all excited over here.
Yeah, excited and nervous, but wow. You think after, all these years, I've been speaking and training for about 12 years now in over 20 countries of the world, so many different groups of people. But, I kid you not, anytime I'm about to do anything, I just get so nervous.
Which is hilarious because you do big audiences as well.
I know, but that's the very interesting thing about it, because I don't know, I've always been taught that don't open your mouth unless something of value is going to come out of it.
No pressure.
And so I guess I kind of got that from my mom, because my mom's very selective in the things that she says. And so, people always listen to her more than my dad, because my dad talks a mile a minute, but whenever my mom speaks, there's something important. So my mom always taught me, don't be someone who just spreads hot air, say what's important. So every time I'm about to go out there, I always second guess myself. I'm like, what I'm going to say going to actually make an impact or something? So it leaves a little bit of nervousness, but I suppose that's a good thing, because it kind of says, okay, makes me think that, all right, let's do the best I can here.
I think you're right. I think it's healthy. Like, no matter how many audiences I've spoken in front of, you never fully know the vibe of that audience or the flow of what, do you know what I mean? And so it's like you've got to channel it into healthy adrenaline to actually be your best self.
Exactly. And before that healthy adrenaline, you spend like 5 minutes feeling like you got food poisoning.
Kind of. But you know what was, I heard about, I saw an interview with a comedian who I quite like, Russell Kane. He's hilarious. And I saw an interview with him about what happens. He's amazing. And he does like amazing shows, sellout shows. And he said, every time I vomit before I go on stage. And I was like, oh, this like imposter syndrome isn't just for those of us who've had maybe a tricky background or anything like that. It's actually, people just have it, but they just sometimes do it afraid, right? So give us a little bit of insight into the work that you do. Like, what are you passionate about at the moment? What's going on?
Well, it's a good thing you asked what I'm passionate about, because I have a lot of stuff that I do, and I don't want to take the entire podcast speaking about all the things I'm involved with. But what I'm passionate about changing lives, to be completely honest, because, there's nothing more inspiring for me than seeing someone walk away and transform their world based on a conversation that they've had with me. I mean, it doesn't matter whether I'm talking to 10, 20,000 people or just one person. I always look for that one person in there who's going to, who's the lights turn on in their eyes and they're like, yes, let's go out and change the world. Because I honestly believe that with every person, there's a seed of greatness, and that seed of greatness kind of, carries them forward and will transform this entire world. I mean, if you look at all the greats throughout history, they were just common people like the rest of us. And, it's just a matter of that passion being awakened within each person. And I know that because I guess that was me years ago. I mean, I was on a very different path. I would have ended up in a bunch of different places. And one person, just randomly helped out in some way, left me with a thought or something. And that kind of transformed my life to where I'm able to transform other lives as well.
So what, was there an actual moment for you? Like one single person, or was it sort of a string of events that maybe affected you in that way?
It was a string of different events, but everyone kind of, because I'm a little bit thick-headed. Some people, they get it on the first try and they're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And, me, it was kind of like, oh, okay, this is a good inkling. And then, I had to get a push for another direction and stuff. So, but it's good because I get a lot of, people who have difficulty getting the point relate to me, because like, oh yeah, it took me a long time to get there too. But yeah, but if I actually had to narrow it down to one point and something, it would probably be my teenage years. Because, formative years, everyone goes through them. Some people love them, some people hate them. We all go through random experiences. But I think that was kind of like the catalyst that kind of made me want to, live a better life, live a life that was impacting others and helping other people to live their best lives as well.
Amazing. Okay, so before we get into that, the teenage years and that catalyst, give us just a little bit of context of what it was like growing up for you. Sort of did your parents, the education system kind of set you up, build your resilience and set you up for the real world?
Ah, well, this is very interesting because I'm from a large family.
How many
So
kids?
there's nine kids in our family plus mom and dad.
Whew.
So, and in India, that's a very shocking thing. I
Okay.
remember one time dad got up to give a talk and there was someone before him and he's like, I have a huge family. I've got 4 kids. I was like, oh my God. And then dad gets up, he's like, I got 9. And everyone was like, no, that can't be. You only have one wife or 2. So yeah, growing up with 9 siblings, it was a very interesting experience. Plus my mom and dad are from 2 different parts of the world. Dad's Indian, mom's French.
Okay.
So
Okay, so
already
you had the cross-cultural thing going on.
that cross cultural connection. And then plus my dad had a very, like an alternate kind of career. He was involved a lot in social work. He's a social worker. And, for over 36 or 37 years now, he's been working with the deaf, with the elderly, with the underprivileged all across India.
So he
So,
had a quite purpose-driven life.
oh, yeah. And especially so in India, because if you've had any experience here with this country or met people from there or talked to them or watched movies from here or, heard comedians like Russell Peters talk about it, you kind of have your set things of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. And
Yeah.
these are like the accepted things.
Yeah.
And then dad coming from a pretty high up family deciding that he wanted to dedicate his life to, helping those who didn't have the voice for themselves kind of was a bit of a big change. But so we grew up in that context of, reaching out, helping others, and just being surrounded by people less fortunate than us, plus cross cultures. So we had the Indian side of our upbringing, we had the foreign side of our upbringing, and it was a very very interesting context and culture to grow up
But
in.
you grew up in India, so you spent your childhood there?
I spent most of my childhood in India, yes, and I traveled a bit. I spent some time in Italy, I spent some time in France, but most of the time it was here in India.
Okay, so you're already a little bit on the outside of maybe the normal Indian traditional type
Yes.
culture. Yes. But you do have a sort of role model, I guess, or a way of seeing the world a little bit differently, through your dad taking a social work route and through seeing sort of variety of people from different backgrounds. And so I imagine that would have had some impact as well on the purpose that you're talking about now.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, the main thing I got from that is the fact of transformation. Like anybody can change
Okay.
because you see some people who society gives up on them and they become great things. Like there was one person my dad worked very closely with. He was deaf and he loved to dance. And his parents are like, this guy's useless. Why does a deaf person want to dance? But then my dad would kind of coach him and kind of let him have the freedom. And he actually went on to win some national awards in the country for his ability.
Really?
And when people would watch him dance, they were just mind blown. They could not believe the fact that he could not hear anything. But he would wear shoes that would allow him to feel the beat on the floor, and so he would time his dancing according to that. And he would share his story to other deaf people and also to hearing people, and that would like mind blow them and say like, okay, well, if he can do that, what can't I overcome? So I guess that was kind of a good context for me to grow up with, and it kind of it gives me encouragement, like even working with some of the hardest cases right now. It's like, yeah, but I know transformation's possible. You just got to believe in it, and it's a change can happen to anybody.
Absolutely. And sometimes our role is simply planting that seed, right? I know you work with teenagers, and I have as part of my career as well. So talk us through those teenage years for you. So you said there was a catalyst moment or it was a tough time. Talk us through that bit.
Well, teenage years. I mean, let me just set it up, I guess, with my theory on teenage years. You know, I think the one thing that everyone is looking for in their teenage years is significance,
Hmm.
right? Because you're trying to figure out who you are. What is my identity? What am I here for? How is my significant? And then we try to find significance in so many different ways. Some people find it through academics, some people find it through sports, some people find it, through
Just
through
like
music.
belonging as well, like trying to fit in.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to fit in, belonging to a group. It's got, people kind of look for other people in the same boat and kind of join to them. And then there are some people who, just make an identity out of not fitting in anywhere, or
That's
being
true.
the person that's hard to relate to. And there are some people who are naturally attracted to those people, and kind of take an aggressor mindset over them, whereas those people like to take on the victim mindset. But everyone is kind of going through their own, I guess, their own hell at that time, and they're
It's a
all
hard
trying because
time. It's transition, right?
exactly, because you have no idea what who you are. Your body's changing, your hormones are changing, your mind is changing, and there's if I'm not sure how it is in that part of the world, but in this part of the world, no one really talks about those things.
Okay.
You don't really have like strong role models to speak about the changes that you're undergoing mentally, the changes that you're undergoing physically, because in India especially, it's quite a taboo subject. You know, the whole passing the threshold of childhood into adulthood and stuff, and pre-adolescence and adolescence. So it's a very confusing time for people, and so you're kind of left on your own to trying to formulate your opinions on things. And so because of that, everyone kind of acts out on it in different ways.
Hmm.
And so just to go back to my story, I was in none of those things. I wasn't exactly very smart. I wasn't very athletic. I wasn't very good looking. And, I was someone who, was really wanted to be accepted, but kind of drew a lot of pride also out of no one likes me. And I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so automatically what that kind of led to was a lot of bullying and abuse from my peers, you know, both physical and mental.
Mm.
And I spent the years between 13 to 17 kind of really, really going through rough times. Already you're almost an alien from a different planet, kind of, being between two different cultures. And then now you're in a different system, you're in a different place, you're surrounded by people who are also going through changes, you're experiencing changes. And it's I would say that those 4 years were actually pretty brutal times for me. It's just during those times, you feel very depressed, you feel caught up in a lot of different things, and you see all these cliques kind of forming, right?
Hmm.
You see all the athletes banding together, and all the socialites banding together, and all the smart people kind of banding together, and then it just makes sense that the people who were kind of like outcasts from all those groups could have gotten together and formed their own uncool club, quote
Yeah.
unquote.
Hmm.
But the funny thing is that the uncool club is more like a lack of a club, because every single one of these uncool kids all want to be a cool kid. So they're all trying to get into those things by distancing themselves from each other for the others who are going through that exact same experience. So instead of finding camaraderie from other people who were going through the same situations that I was, and finding support from, my peers who were also being bullied and stuff, you distance yourself from them. And so not only did you end up ostracized, but you ended up lonely as well.
So lonely, isolate, which is so much worse for your mental health, for that feeling of depression and all the rest of it.
Oh, yes, completely. And, once you start letting these things in, it leads to so many other thoughts. You start having suicidal tendencies. I'm not proud of it, but I would admit that, I contemplated suicide a number of times, and, attempted it also once at some point.
Mm.
Because, once you get your mind kind of full with these things, it's all that you kind of think of. Like, I do a lot of coaching for young people, and we always talk about the behavioral funnel. And every action comes from an emotion, which comes from a thought, which is triggered by a belief you have about yourself. And so the more you condition your mind with these beliefs, the more your emotions get impacted by it, and the more that you will act out in very different ways. And so because my thoughts and my beliefs weren't in the right place, my emotions were all over the place. You're sad, you're angry, you're depressed, and so the actions that it generally leads to weren't the greatest. So
Of course.
yeah.
What about, so you're one of 9 siblings, and so I'm curious about, support networks, just as far as, did anyone know that this was going on? Were you able to share this with even any of your siblings or anyone?
Well, it was not exactly,
Hmm.
because they're also trying to figure things out for themselves, right?
Sure.
And I have an older brother who was kind of like anti me as in he was smart, he was good looking, he
Oh,
was
I see.
suave,
The
he
opposite.
was very athletic, he was good with the girls,
Hmm.
he was always captain of the sports team. really kind of like, the complete opposite of who I was. So I always felt that, we would never really connect on that.
Yeah.
And, for him to kind of fit in also because, he's going through his own things as well. So he also distanced himself from me from a bit also. So it was interesting.
Well, hardcore, and I'm hearing about some rock bottom moments there, just in attempting suicide or certainly having those thoughts and feelings. So at 17, what started changing, or who did you have role models, or what was that little bit like the next bit?
Okay, it actually for me it all came to a head when we had actually gone for a leadership training camp, kind of like a slash summer camp.
Okay.
And this was run by some Americans and stuff who were trying a new concept. Summer camp is huge in the
Yeah.
U.S., parts of Europe. India, it's a completely foreign concept. You
Yeah.
want summer camp, you send your kids to go play badminton or something like that. That is summer camp.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this was a unique concept. There was about we were going to go somewhere for about 3-4 weeks. There was going to be people from all over the country who were there, and it was going to be a very interesting experience. And so, I was excited to go until I got there and found out that some of the people I really disliked followed me
Ooh. Uh-oh.
there. And within I'd say 24 to 48 hours, it was back to where it was. So here I thought this is my new start. No one knows me. I'm gonna be,
Your
you
escape.
know, yeah, my escape route. And sure enough, you'll always find, we kind of attract different types of people.
Uh-huh.
And so when you're so engrossed in the victim mindset, you generally find people to bully you or abuse you or take advantage of you.
To almost reinforce that message that you have about yourself.
Exactly.
Mm.
Because, if that's the belief that we have about ourselves, we always try to find ways to reinforce it. I mean, Anthony Robbins does a great job when he talks about this. And he says that the strongest force in the human body is the need to stay consistent with your belief system. And so, if this is the story you tell yourself, if this is what you believe, I'm unloved, I am unworthy, I don't, no one likes me, everyone's against me, it's us against the world mentality. And by us, I mean me, myself, and I. Then automatically you will find people who will reinforce that on you. And so it was pretty bad. You know, got left behind in the woods on a camping trip. Got physically abused in the boys' dorm. A lot of things I'd like to forget, but there was my birthday during one of those times, and this was kind of like a breaking point for me because usually for a birthday you get everyone together, you sing happy birthday, you bring out the cake, and then at the end everyone comes up, shakes your hand, gives you a hug, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.,
Yeah.
piece of cake and goes. So when they put off all the lights and brought out the cake and they're like, hey, let's sing for David, and they started everything up, the whole happy birthday to you,
Yeah.
the room emptied. I kid you not. To a man, every one of my peers left the room.
Shut up.
I am not kidding. And I was devastated. I left as well. I didn't wait for them to finish singing the song. Went out, went straight, locked myself in the bathroom. And then I was just like, I can't handle this anymore. So there was woods around the property. I ran out and I stayed in the woods overnight. And that was probably the lowest I've ever been. And, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried more that night than I've ever cried in my entire life. And I was like, why am I living? What's the purpose of me being here? No one even cares if I'm here. In fact, my presence here doesn't seem to make anyone happy. People are happy when I'm not here because, I'm here all night and no one has even bothered to come searching for me to see if I'm gone or anything. And so, that night was probably, I think, had I not had a bit of mental courage and probably not, still had the attachment to my parents, or probably just a little bit of cowardice, that probably would have been the end of my story
Mm.
here on earth. But luckily I had a little bit of strength left, and I just crawled back. I'm like, okay, I'm going to write my parents and I'm going to tell them I'm coming home because this is it, I'm done. So got back to camp, wrote the letter home, and was like, please get me out of here. And a couple of days later, my parents had not got the letter yet because this is before email.
This is old school. Yeah.
Yeah, old school snail mail, maybe a phone call or something, and then let them see what to do. And even then, phone call, no cell phones. So,
No.
this was interesting. So it was someone else's birthday. It was this other girl. And once again, the lights go off. Once again, the music starts playing. And once again, people start leaving. And at this moment, it just hits me super hard.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm not alone in this.
Oh, I see. So you're like, this isn't an isolated experience.
This isn't an isolated experience. The world is not all against me. There is someone else who is going through the exact same thing. And have you seen that movie Black Hawk Down?
Yes.
There's that one scene when they're all getting shot up, no? And
I
then
feel
the
like
driver
that's the whole movie, but
yeah, it's true. It is the entire movie, but there's one really impactful scene that comes to me often. The driver just gets killed, and the general screams to a guy in the back, and he's like, "Get up, get and drive." And the guy's like, "I can't drive. I'm shot." And the general says, "Everybody is shot. Just get up and drive." And I think that kind of really hit me at that point. Like, yeah, everybody is shot. Everyone is going through their own hell here. It's a famous writer, I can't recall who it is, but he said that everyone is in hell just facing different demons. And I think at that moment, it really, really hit me. When I was going through a rough time, I had spoken to one of, my mentors a couple of years ago, and I was like, this sucks. My life sucks. Everyone doesn't like me. And they said something super profound that, it didn't really stick with me at that point, but it's the first thing that entered my mind when I saw that thing happen with that girl. And what that mentor told me was that you don't own the monopoly on pain.
It's not all about you.
It's not all about me. There are others who are going through their own pain as well. They just don't see. And I shrugged it off at that time. I was like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
But in that moment, that's all I could think about. You do not own the monopoly on pain. There is someone else who is going through the exact same thing, and not on the other side of the world, right there in front of my eyes.
But isn't it interesting, though, that when we're in it, when our brain is just in that victim mentality, it pretty much feels impossible to actually notice that anyone else might have a backstory. It's like we reinforce this isolation, right? That no one will understand. And then we feel shame about what we're going through and don't talk about it. And it's the lack of talking about it, which kind of perpetuates this idea that nobody else is going through and nobody else will understand what we're going through.
Absolutely. See, there's the scientists, have decided that, discovered, whatever it is, that the average human being has 60,000 thoughts in their head a day. But only between 100 to 500 of those thoughts become conscious, because there's a certain part of our brain called the reticular activating system, and that funnels every one of our conscious thoughts into our brain. So if your constant mindset and pattern is that this is about me, I'm the only one who's going through this, I'm the only one who's facing that, those are the only thoughts you will have on a daily basis, again and again and again. So like you said, it's absolutely true that your eyes won't be open to the people suffering around you. You won't look at other situations and actually see that, hey, your life is actually better than those. No, because you're so caught up in your own pain, you're so caught up in your own difficulties, and it's valid. It's absolutely valid. The pain that you're going through is real, and it hurts like hell. My pain hurt like hell. But in that moment, I realized that there is other people who are facing that same pain. And in that moment, I kind of had a choice. Do I leave too?
Ooh.
Or do I stay?
Yeah, so like there's an action that you need to take, a message that you can send through action or inaction, I guess.
Exactly. And so all my friends are pouring out of the room, and I remember this in slow motion, because I can see the doors open, I can see people leaving, I can see that girl on stage, her face is dropping, and I just couldn't move. I just couldn't leave. So by some strength or the other, song finished, I went up, shook her hand, happy birthday, took a piece of cake and went. And honest to God, we became best friends. And we were friends for years after that. And, she was a person who kind of helped me through a lot in my life. I'd like to think I helped her through stuff in her life as well. But that I kind of felt was the turning point for me. Start realizing that, we're all going through it, and it's okay.
And so that was the start of the turning point. And I know that you are now in this position where you're helping thousands of lives all the time, and you have so many different exciting projects. And so I'm always curious about that messy middle bit. So we've got your rock bottom moment, your catalyst of like, I'm not the only one. There's other people in the world. You're still a kid though, right? You still have those people that are bullies and all of that. You still have habits around your thought process and all the rest of it. And then fast forward, you're in this amazing position where you've got this science and learning and you're giving back. So talk us through just that little middle bit of, well, how do you take the first step forward? How do you begin changing your thoughts? How do you continue to persevere and build up to where you're at now?
Mm. Well, it was a story that someone shared with me about this guy who goes down to this beach, and it's at low tide. The waves have gone out. There's a million starfish on the beach. Just everywhere you look, there's starfish. And this one little boy is going over there, picking up the starfish one by one and flinging them back into the water. And this guy walks up to him and says, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What does it look like I'm doing? I'm saving the starfish." Duh.
Yeah.
In this typical 5-year-old arrogance.
Yeah.
And this man is like, "Well, I'm a wise person, and I want you to turn around and look at all the starfish on this beach. And there's no way that you can, get everyone out. Mathematical formula. If you throw one per second, blah blah blah."
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
little kid just holds up his hand and says, "Watch." He picks up a starfish, throws it in the water, and says, "See, made a difference for that one, right?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You might not be able to save the whole beach, but you can save that one.
Yeah.
And for me, that was kind of the mindset that I adopted from there. Like, okay, my staying in the room that day with that girl probably saved her life. And she actually admitted to me that it did.
Mm.
And so I might not be able to influence the entire school. I might not be able to influence every person I talk to, but let me find that one person to help in that day. Find one person who is going through a difficulty themselves. Find one person whose life is also sucking at that moment. And just be there for them as a friend. Try to find out what is going on and how do we move on from that point. And once you start doing that, you start finding more people to help.
Well, and
And
you also have a sense of purpose. You
absolutely.
begin to have a reason for all of the crap that you've been through, and for, you can begin to see a path forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I still carry that purpose with me today. Even before I get on stage, doesn't matter where I am, doesn't matter how many people are there, I always stop and I always tell myself, it's kind of like my mantra or whatever it is. Before I get on stage, I'm like, let me help one person. Let there be one starfish in that audience who I can, whose life I can save today. And it's still what gets me going up in the morning, and it still gets me going over there. But going back to what you said about the messy middle period, what you said is perfect. You got to have that purpose. You got to have something that gets you up and moving. And when you start doing that in small ways, people start giving you bigger opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can impact one life, that guy's life has changed. What's he going to do? He's going to go find 3 or 4 other people and say, "Hey, meet this guy, listen to this guy, put this guy here, let him talk over there." I mean, some of my biggest openings have all come through, word of mouth people or through friends booking them. Like I have one person who attended one of my conferences in India about 4 years ago, and I'm currently under contract with him now, and I've done seminars with him in about 7 different countries because he's just I found a way to impact his life, and now he's like, "I'm taking you everywhere."
Yeah. So there's like a ripple effect. If you just manage the day and the one person and change your perspective a little bit, that ripple effect just begins, because it's genuine as well, right? It's from a heart place. It's from a soul place. Like I resonate with that a lot. And then the ripple effect starts to come up. And also you work with teenagers, and I relate to this a lot because I had a tough teenage, time in my life where it was just dark, and used alcohol quite a bit and just tried to erase myself through destructive behaviors, right? And it really informed not only supporting people, but helping that beautiful age group, because it is just such a tricky time. And I know, even if the people don't know that they affected me, I know the couple of people that just saw me and made me feel like I mattered and said something that gave me hope, or, so there's something that it seems to be a thread that has been connected to your teenage years, that dark time, and the purpose within the projects you do with teenagers. Would you say that your personal experience is the direct kind of influence on those types of projects that you do?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the most important thing is just giving people significance. When it comes to working with young people, it's just give them significance. And because I know that's what I craved as a youngster, that's what I think all my peers the funniest thing is, just off topic a little bit, but all the people who, I kind of had difficulties with as a teen, some of them are my closest friends now. It's
because they were just going through their own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Once, yeah, because you grow out of it. Once you get, I guess, kind of have the time to process it, to find your own space, to find your purpose, to find your own value, your own identity, then, you undergo that change as a person. The funniest thing is there was a guy called Phil who was like one of my major bullies. And, believe it or not, a couple of years ago when I started one of my other companies, he was one of the first guys I hired.
Was
And
he? Okay.
yeah, we still have a good working relationship together. Of course, I've changed his name, but
yeah.
yeah, we have a very good connection together. So it's you do grow out of it. You do, we mature, we learn things as we go. I think life is a process of learning, and the more that we learn, the more that we teach ourselves, the more that we experience, and the more we process it the right way. Then we start training our brain to, open up to new experiences, to open up to new values, to open up to new ways of thinking. And that transforms us as a character, that transforms us as a person. And because of that, I know I'm not the same person I was when I was young. You're not the same person you were when you were young, for sure. But because of that, because you have that, that stuff that you've learned and the maturity that you gain from it, it enables you to reach out to other people and connect with them in very different ways.
So it sounds like you've cracked the mindset thing. You understand, how not to be a victim, but how to learn and develop yourself. But what challenges still show up now? Like, what are the weak points for you? Even though you have all the knowledge, like, is it just that you've cracked it, or do these challenges still show up for you?
Oh, the challenges show up all the time. Knowledge is worthless. Knowledge applied will change your life. I tell this to all my students all the time.
Yeah.
Whenever I give a talk, I'm like, if you're here with your notebooks and you're over here to listen to a seminar, get out. Unless you're here to actually, take one thing from here and do it, then it's only going to do, because knowledge is nothing. Knowledge applied is that. And sometimes the problem with those of us who know a lot, we kind of talk ourselves out of the application.
That's true. You can get stuck in the cerebral part of like endless knowledge and not actually do the thing, or come from an empathy heart place and connecting to people. You just know the stuff, and it's like how you download it to them, in an authoritative way rather than really connecting in a human way.
Exactly. No, that human touch is the most important of all. Yeah, so I'd say the difficulties that I have most at this moment is, I guess, finding a balance between my life and other people's lives as well. Because you probably
like
know this.
Boundary.
Yes, as a counselor and as a coach, and when you work with people, sometimes your whole focus becomes other people's lives and not so much your own.
Yeah, that's so true.
I'd say that was actually when I was reviewing my last year, and I realized that my challenge for this year was going to be work on myself a bit more too, because
you can give everything away as well. Yeah,
exactly. Plus, also you find yourself researching for the other person, studying this thing for the other person. When you read things, it's like, oh, I know this person who needs this for sure, or oh, this would be so good for somebody else. But then you don't actually stop and say, hey, will this be good for me? Because or do I need to learn this? Or what are the areas that I need to work on in my life to take me from here to there? Because I see where I've started from. I see where I am now, but I want to go further. You want to continue to grow. You want to continue to progress. You want to continue to build a life. And in order to do that, you're only going to be able to do that if you're continuously progressing as well. So I'd say my biggest problem at the moment right now is creating that disconnect between, what I need to do to be good at my job and what I need to do to be good for myself also. Because
yeah, that's so profound, because especially when you're like us and we feel super purposeful about giving back to other people, it's really hard if somebody comes up after a talk or someone catches you on LinkedIn or social media or whatever, and it's like, I've got, people want to share their stuff because they've heard something valuable from you, and I always am grateful and appreciate that someone connects with me in that way. But equally, I can't work with everyone. And when we're trying to scale, we need to be empowering people to support us to do the mission, right? And to do the work. So that thing about boundaries, I don't think it's ever a perfect science, right? Because sometimes our resilience and our resources are really high and we can give back in a bigger way. But then we keep doing it. And then we're like, I've got health issues, or I'm like exhausted or burnt out. And we've got to have these moments of reflection to kind of go, what do I need in order to be the best version of myself? Because ultimately that's going to sustain, us giving back in a bigger way anyway. right?
Exactly.
When you are in balance, because I know that it can be like this, right? When you are in balance, what are maybe the habits or the things that you put in place to help look after you?
Journaling,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Take a few minutes every morning just to write stuff down, because what it does is it kind of, it gets my brain kind of sharpened. For the day ahead, I'm able to reflect on everything, and I'm able to also see what I need for me also that day. What are the things that I need to learn? What's happening in my own life? Because as soon as you start the day, you're like, okay, so I have a call with this person. What is this person going through? I have a call with that person. I'm speaking at this place. Before the day starts, sit down and write. What about me? What am I going through in this thing? How am I reflecting on my own life? So that way, you spend some time in the day, just working on you for a bit. Another thing I try to do is I try to take time out in my day just to disconnect, go outside, take a walk, have a bit of a breather, go have a coffee in Starbucks, listen to a podcast, or
Yeah.
just listen to some instrumental music. I love listening to instrumental music before a meeting or something. I've also given up driving just because if you've not been to India,
I
you
have
should make a
actually.
trip.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How'd you find the driving?
I want to say mental. Like, I
Exactly.
remember being on a rickshaw and there had been rains, and so obviously you couldn't see potholes or anything, and you see like all these upended like rickshaws or people, and then we were in traffic, so the rickshaw's just like, oh, let's just go into oncoming traffic, let's just go onto the other end side of the highway and go that way. And I'm like, what are people thinking? I thought London was stressful for driving. That is a whole other level. Yes.
Exactly. So I like the way you said mental, because that defines what I feel about driving in India.
Yeah.
So I've realized if I'm going somewhere to give a talk, or if I'm going somewhere to give a lecture, and I need to be in the right emotional space, but I spend about an hour shouting at people, honking at cows,
Yeah. Oh
pressing
yeah,
the
the
brake
cows.
because because of the brake, because there's some motorist cutting across the road, or a person walking in the middle of the street. By the time I get to that place, I have no mental strength to give out. It takes me like 5, 6 minutes to get my own
Yeah.
thoughts and my own piece together. So one thing practical for me I did, I just gave up driving while I'm here in India, because it enables me to, sit in the back, do a bit of work, take a bit of meditation time, listen to some instrumental music, listen to a podcast. So I go there full, not running on empty, and, about to, blow my top.
And so
That's
you're talking about the primer side of things. So how do you get yourself in the right state? Do you do anything in the the aftercare bit? Because I've always found that I can set up for the thing, and I sometimes underestimate how draining it is after a day of training or speaking, like how my body is affected. And I'm just wondering if you need to do a little aftercare stuff or
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
Because when you're in that moment, once again, it comes down to the science of the brain. Like, once you understand the way your reticular activating system works, it'll transform your life. So if you're sitting over there, you're handling questions, you're primed in that state of mind. When you leave from that place, that's all you can think about. And you find yourself thinking about it on the way back home, in the kitchen, if you're married and you have kids, I know you have kids, you find that it takes a while for the emotional disconnect to come to where you can actually put on, we used to call it putting on different caps. This is my work cap, and now this is my family cap, and this is
Yeah.
this and that. And when I was in Sweden last year, there was something pretty interesting that, I found, and I've started trying to make it mine also. And the Swedes have a very interesting tradition they call fika. And what they do is, they're salaried for an 8-hour workday, but they only work for 7 hours.
Mm.
And the last hour is the hour they call fika. And during this hour, they all go down to the coffee shop or to the bar. They have a beer, they have a coffee, they have some pastries, they talk to their coworkers, they relax a little bit, and then they go home, because the government believes that, Sweden has a very family centric culture. And the government believes that if you're going back carrying the stress from work, you're doing your family a disservice. So your employees will actually pay you to spend an hour to de stress. So by the time you go back home, you're in the right frame of mind. So I decided, so now I have a policy whenever I'm traveling anywhere, where I'm speaking anywhere, especially on my speaking tours. I tell people, I'll come, you'll pay me for a week, but I'll speak for 5 days.
Mm.
And those 2 days, I'll spend some time, I'll go sit in a park somewhere, or I'll go to an animal shelter and I'll play with the puppies.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah.
you go take a boat out on the lake, just row somewhere, listen to the wind, because what that does is it kind of neutralizes your mind and puts you in the space. But when you're doing things consistently, like, okay, I have to do the talk again tomorrow, and how do
Yeah.
I clear my going back home today? I'd say meditation is always good. Just that time, every day, spend 5 to 6 minutes listening to some soft music, just breathing, getting your mind reset, reframed. I do that. And you got to find an activity that requires no brains for you, but relaxes you.
It's just that
For me,
mindful activity.
yeah, exactly. For almost mindless activity, I would say. For
Mm.
me, it's solitaire.
Is it? Okay. Yeah.
I'll play solitaire. It doesn't require me to do anything beyond my brain. What it does is I'll do solitaire while practicing breathing deeply, and I'll kind of feel reset after that. Or if it's something like I've had an extra stressful day or something, I'll go get a massage, or I'll go get a pedicure or something. This is kind of embarrassing for a guy to admit, but I do stuff like that because I value my mental space and I value my mental health. And honestly, if you're not taking care of you, you're not disconnecting in that way properly. It's only going to spill out into your work later, and you're not going to be able to give the way you're supposed to give. You're not going to be able to help the other people the way you're supposed to help. So, yeah, finding ways to get your mind back into a neutral place to
In order to sustain that level of success.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's critical. So I mean, I feel like we could talk all day. Just we could go down the route of the science of the brain. We could go down the route of just as a speaker, what are the things that we do to keep us in balance and thinking about our thoughts. But I'm just gonna have to get you on again. But in summary, I guess I'm curious. What advice would you give to your younger self? So to a kid who's in that victimy space, who might be being bullied, who doesn't quite have the capacity to understand, intention and attraction and all that sort of stuff. But like, what's the first thing that they could do in order to just shift that space that they're in?
I'd say the first thing I'd tell them is just accept the fact that you're you. There is no one else in this world like you.
Mm.
We're a world of about 7.5 billion people, so many different random genetic combinations, but there's only one you, and that itself is a miracle. Whether you believe in God, whether you believe in the universe, believe in fate, whatever it is, something happened to put you exactly where you are, for this moment in time. There's something that gave you the exact parents. There's something that gave you the exact, characteristics that you have, what you might consider your pros, your cons, your flaws. And it's a miracle just to be you. And that is significant. That has purpose. That has meaning. You are valued. You are valued just for who you are, just being a human being at this moment in time, in the place where you're in the family that you're in. Now, what's going to give you significance? What's, purpose? What's your destiny, et cetera, et cetera? All that you'll find later. For now, just enjoy being you.
I love that. So
And
be you and be patient, right?
And the second thing I tell them, yeah, exactly. And the second thing I tell them is even though you're you, even though you are the only person of you, that's not insignificant, because you have a shared experience. You're born in this moment in time. You are connected to so many people through shared experience. Find others to share that experience with.
So start talking, put yourself out there, realize you're not alone.
Exactly. And find common ground, find shared experience, because everyone is facing something. Everyone's going through something. Everyone's trying to find their way on this earth. I mean, we come in here with nothing, and I don't think anyone leaves completely knowing the answer.
Mm-hmm.
All of life is a journey of discovery of who we are, of what we're supposed to do, of what are we here for, where are we going, whatever it is. But it's okay to not know. But there are other people who are searching for the same thing as well. So realize that you are significant, and start reaching out to others and sharing experiences.
I love that so much, because there's this misconception, isn't there, that as soon as we turn 18 or 21 or whatever the adult age is, that we'll have it figured out and we'll know what the hell we're doing. But if we learn to enjoy the journey a bit, we just realize that is the point. It's just like the growth and the learning and the journey. It's not about that destination, whatever we think that might be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I still joke and tell people, I'm like, I still don't know what I want to be when I'm growing up, but I'm enjoying getting there.
But I'm doing lots of things along the way. So David, if people want to connect with you in some way for speaking or coaching or anything, where can they find you?
Depending on when this podcast goes up, my website.
Okay.
Unfortunately, now we're just doing a little bit of last minute tweaks to it, but it'll be up.
Okay.
Hopefully by the time this goes live, it'll be my full name, www.davidthirumur.com. Connect with me there. Be very happy to speak to you. And let's have a conversation.
Let's see what happens. Yeah. We'll put that into the show notes. David, for now, thank you so much for your time, your authenticity. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you so much. Thanks for putting up with, my stumbling, and it's my first time on a podcast, so I'm a little bit nervous, but thank you. You've been a wonderful host, and I hope we get to talk again soon.
We will. It's great. Thank you.